Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Our guest today is backgammon and bridge expert Kit Woolsey, discussing, among other things, his new book entitled The Backgammon Encyclopedia Volume 2, More Cube Reference Position. Kit Woolsey is a world-class player and prolific writer in both backgammon and bridge. Kit Woolsey, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Hi, Bob. Good to be here.
Good to have you. Now, the Backgammon Encyclopedia Volume 2 implies there was a Volume 1. How are Volume 1 and Volume 2 different from each other?
Volume 1 was more classic types of positions, 5-point holding games, 4-point holding games. In other words, positions which you could almost, have very similar positions come up often on the board. Volume 2 was more general types of positions, not your classic ones.
But both books were doubling. Either it's a double or not, and if it is, then it's either a take or a pass. Is that correct?
Right. The entire books are entirely on the doubling cube, whether you should double and whether you should take. That's correct. And in Volume 1, the best bot out there for the rollouts was Snowy. For Volume 2, there's a better bot called Extreme Gammon, and that was used to do the rollouts in Volume 2.
Before we jump to that, Bob, I just want to ask, you had mentioned to me that apparently you got Extreme Gammon sort of before it was released to the public for some period of time.
No, that was Jellyfish, which was about 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. You had that ahead of time.
Right. I had that before the public had it.
How much do you feel that accelerated your game during that period?
Oh, a huge amount. The bots were telling us things that we just didn't know, which we were guessing at before. And now, we had, confirmation or evidence showing that our concepts were wrong. Every player, who studied with them, his game has improved considerably. It would be impossible not to.
So was that, did that lead to sort of a big cash infusion, having that knowledge that other people didn't have?
No, because, the knowledge I had was only for a short period of time. Then it was public and everybody had it.
Yeah.
If you redid Volume 1 with Extreme Gammon rather than Snowy, how many of the cube decisions do you think would change in Volume 1?
Probably not very many. The two bots are similar enough, and they're both very good. Some of the numbers might change, but I would doubt if there would be any actually different decisions.
Well, if assuming that if you pass, then your equity is -1. It could have been that one was 1.02 versus 0.98 or something of that nature. So that could have led to a bear take versus a bear pass.
That's possible. But the important point is it would be a close decision. Whether it's a bear take or a bear pass, who cares? You're not going to see this exact position in real life anyway. You just want to get a feel for what's a bear take and what's a clear take and what's a clear pass. And then when you see a position on the board, you could relate it to these reference positions and make a better estimate.
Are you planning future volumes in the Backgammon Encyclopedia series? These two are on Cube Play.
No, I'm not.
So in essence then, is it fair to say your Backgammon Encyclopedia is overtitled because it's just on Cube Play, which is, while it's important, but so is checker play important?
Well, perhaps it is, but
that's the way it is. Okay.
It's not going to be done that way, no.
Okay. So the current volume looks at 240 positions, and for each one there's a cube decision. Right. Now, if you were, let's assume you're a world-class player, which is a very reasonable assumption, and you're playing Richard, who will say it plays at the 95th percentile level, which makes him very, very good.
Maybe
but
30
a step
years
below
ago.
World class. Well, okay, for the assumption now.
So. Yes.
How many of the cube decisions in the book would be different if you were playing Richard?
None
instead
of them.
of a world class?
They'd all be the same.
And now assume you're playing me, and I'm at the 85% level, which means I'm maybe an intermediate player, but I have, if it's early in the game, I have potential to make all kinds of mistakes before the end of it. Would you still make the same cube decisions?
Only if, for some reason, I thought there was a flaw in your taking or passing philosophies.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed, I mean, I really don't play a lot anymore, but I do have Extreme Gammon, which is, we should mention is a free app that you can get on your phone. There is a paid upgrade, but even the free app plays really, really strongly. And yes. One of the things that I've noticed that has changed is from the time that I was playing a lot is that the cube, the correct doubling point is much earlier than what it was before.
Than what people thought it was. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Than what people thought it was. And I would think that if you have a player that you know takes too much, you or at least I would tend to hold on to the cube a little bit longer because I know they're going to be taking anyway.
That's very, very dangerous to do because even a player who takes too much will assume isn't totally crazy. And if you hold on to that cube and roll a joker, you just lost a chance to win twice or four times as much. So it's very dangerous to do that.
To not play optimal.
Right. It's usually correct, if you have a double. Now, you might double some positions which aren't doubles because there's a chance that the opponent might drop. I mean, that I always do. But going the other direction, it's very risky because you don't know how fast your position might improve. If I knew my position was going to improve slowly, then I might follow that philosophy. And in some positions where the positions aren't particularly volatile, I may very well do that. But if there's a chance of a big jump, and there often is, then it's essential to get the cube out there, even if you know your opponent will take.
Do you do much money play these days, or is it mostly tournament play?
Oh, almost all tournaments. Very little money play.
Is there much? What is the state of backgammon these days in the United States? I mean, my impression is that there is some sort of gaining popularity in some foreign countries, but how is it in the U.S.?
Well, I go to the tournaments, and there's reasonable representation in the tournaments. Pretty much, it's been pretty much steady over the past years. As far as money play goes, I couldn't really say.
So there hasn't really been a general decline in the number of tournaments?
I don't think so, no.
All right. So, given that talking about the exact intricacies of 30 checkers on a board doesn't make for good radio, let's switch to bridge.
Okay.
Now, you're a Hall of Fame member of the American Contract Bridge League, three-time world champion, and for more than 30 years you've been director of Bridge World's Master Solvers Club. Pretty impressive resume. Bridge experts are known sometimes to hire themselves out. That is, I might pay you a lot of money to be my partner in a big event, hoping that I can earn enough points to become a life master or some other designation. Do you do this, and why or why not?
I do occasionally when the opportunity comes up. I don't depend on that for an income or anything. But if it's convenient and people I want to play with, then I might do it, yes.
Would they have to be a somebody for you to do it, or would you do it with a nobody if the money was right?
It depends on the circumstances. That's
okay.
The only answer I can give.
Personality, I would have a lot to do with it, right? I mean,
yes,
if the guy's an asshole, it doesn't matter how much he wants to pay.
Well, I'm sure everybody has their price, Munch. But no, the point is, I don't depend on it for a living. And so, I'm more flexible than perhaps people who do depend on that for a living.
Okay. Now, you invented a defense to one no trump.
Right.
There are more than 50 defenses to that bid. What sets yours apart from the other conventions?
What sets mine apart is that when showing two suits, you can show which suit is longer, and most of the other defenses don't have that ability.
Has that gained a lot of popularity?
Actually, it has. Surprising amount.
And is it called the Woolsey, or what's it called?
Well, yeah, it's called Woolsey. Or most people call it that, yes.
Yeah.
Was it ever considered controversial or illegal?
Actually, in the ACBL, on the general convention chart, it was illegal until about 2 or 3 years ago. These would be, events, not open events, but, potentially weaker field events. For open events, it's always been legal.
And so why was it considered illegal?
Because those were the rules of the people who made the rules.
Well, they must have thought there was some... Did they think it was too complicated for the weaker players to understand or something? Or
they thought that one of the bids was too difficult to handle.
Huh.
But
it's kind of crazy.
Did you lobby to get it accepted, or it was just over time it just happened without your active involvement?
I was not involved at all over the time it eventually happened.
All right. Before we leave the subject, do you still use the Woolsey defense to one no trump?
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
Using it.
Good. All right.
I've been using it for 30-some-odd years.
Okay. Any chance it'll ever be Woolsey will become Bridge World Standard?
I don't even know what Bridge World Standard is today, but it certainly might be.
Oh. Well, okay, good. In general,
it might be today for all. It might be today for all I know. I truly don't know.
But on Bridge World Standard is, I thought, a group of conventions used by the Bridge World magazine when it discusses certain problems. So if you want to bid on a certain group of problems, then they do it with respect to the Bridge World Standard, and it changes over time. But it's and you're one of the directors of the Master Solvers Club, so I would have thought you would know Bridge World Standard cold. And now you're telling me you... I guess I am. So where is the flaw in that logic?
Oh, the flaw in that logic is that when the problems are presented, whoever's the problems will give footnotes. Such and such would mean such and such in Bridge World Standard. I don't need to know Bridge World Standard any more than anybody else needs to know it. The footnote will tell you if it's a problem in one of my sets and isn't adequately footnoted. I'll tell the editor and say, I don't think this problem is adequate the way it's written.
Okay, so it could change from problem to problem.
No, not
with
from problem
footnotes.
to problem. No, they'll use the same methods. It's just that if there's a question of what a bid might mean, it's necessary for them to give a footnote saying what it would mean.
I see.
And so whether it's forcing or not in this particular case, or something like that.
Right. If there was some question as to how it might be interpreted, then that would be footnoted appropriately. Otherwise, you'd have people answering on the answers wouldn't mean anything because people would be answering on their own perceptions of something, and those perceptions would be different.
So, being a director of the Master Solvers Club, does that mean you create the problems and present them?
No, I don't. I mean, I could submit ones for creation. I mean, submit problems if I particularly wanted to, but in general, I don't.
And that is so the problems are devised by somebody else, whether they are real life or just made up to be interesting, right. And then each of them, the master solvers, weigh in on what they would do and why. Is that kind of the way it works?
Right, and I basically just moderate the answers, stick in my own views, and put it all together, twice a year.
And good. So I looked at the winners, and some of the people have won those annual contests 2 or 3 or 4 times. So I did not recognize the name, but I'm not a player. I assume there's significant competition to be the best Bridge World Master Solver.
I have no idea. I don't even look at that.
All right.
You know what? Actually, that reminds me of other games where there's some people who focus on solving the quizzes and other people who go get the money. You know what I mean? So that doesn't surprise me.
There have been many scandals at Bridge.
There certainly have.
Have you been involved in identifying or evaluating whether somebody has been cheating? And if so, can you share some of that with us?
Yes, I've actually, as it turned out, been involved in quite a few of them. Back around 1980, there was a case involving Alan Koken and Steve Sion, where I was one of the a group of 3 or 4 people who actually broke the code or broke a significant amount of their code and presented it to the ACBL, which eventually led to there being eventually led to the processes which occur. And most recently, this is a couple of years ago, there was a big scandal involving about 3 or 4 pairs. They all happened to be from Europe. When in the European Championships, they were potentially shown to have been cheating, and I was one of the people who looked at this, and I largely gathered the data, looked at it to see if it was legitimate or not, and put it all together in a readable format, with the help of several other people. It was not myself alone by any means. I was not the person who figured out what they were doing. That was somebody else in all the cases.
Now, when you play at those high levels, you have dividers between you, so you can't look at each other, right? And you hold out a card with your bid. So how are they able to? How were they doing it?
There were various ways. During the play of the hand, the screen is divided, is lifted up partially, and you can see what card the person has been played. In one case, one of the pairs was the way they played their card indicated some information. In another case, there may have been, body signals, which you could, see your partner's body, which may have indicated some information. I mean, you know enough about this sort of world that anybody who wants to cheat is going to find a way. It's just that the screens make it more difficult, but certainly not impossible.
Yeah, and actually you could have electronic equipment and signal with no problems. I know chess, this is a tremendous problem as well, and you have to have a minder to go to the bathroom now in big chess tournaments.
Right. Well, chess, you have the problem. I think it's more that you could communicate with the computer. That's not a problem in bridge, but you do have the problem, from electronically of, let's say, in a team match, finding out, what the hand is or what the results at the other table was, electronically. And
yeah, I mean, we, as blackjack players, prior to the laws changing, we had communication in our shoes where we could, buzz to each other by pressing a button with our big toe, and, your heel would buzz. And, that was more than 30 years ago.
I'm well aware of that. I never did it, but I know people who did use these.
Yeah, so nowadays it's so much more sophisticated that I
can imagine. I haven't been following it at all.
Yeah, but no, I mean, in bridge, I would think they would be able to come up with all kinds of ways to communicate electronically like that without anyone being able to see it.
Well, it's potentially possible. Yeah, I mean, now the laws, say you're not allowed to, have cell phones, for example, in the room or what have you. But as you say, people can find a way. Maybe those transmitters in your shoes will be back. Who knows?
So let's assume that the cheating method was going to be when you led the card, you put it slightly to the east if it meant one thing and slightly to the west if it meant something else.
Right. There was one pair who definitely did that.
And when you were analyzing whether or not they did it, would you have a photographic evidence of what they did, or would you just have to look at the bidding record? What information would you have to make your judgment?
The information we did have was a video of the entire table for the entire match.
So in big tournaments, are all tables videoed?
It's becoming more popular, particularly after this happened. I mean,
particularly if certain pairs.
The motivation for videoing it, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the motivation. But yes, this was in the European Championship in 2014 when all of this data was collected. It was videotaped and put on YouTube, and people looked at it. You get 500 people looking at something. If there's something to be seen, somebody is going to see it. Crowdsourcing works very well in this area.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have there been any cheating? Have there been any cheating scandals where you go, "Wow, that was really clever," even as you busted them?
There's always that sort of suspicion, but let's face it. Any top bridge player is going to take some actions which are out of the ordinary for whatever reason they think is right, and sometimes these actions are going to succeed. And, one such hand doesn't mean anything at all. It's the combination of many hands plus sort of a sixth sense you get if you're playing somebody for a lot of hands. You might get the feeling, something is wrong just from the tempo, just from, I don't know quite how to explain it. Munch could probably tell you more about that than I could, but you just know something is wrong even if you don't know exactly what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears here. I just want to say I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to Kit because before I started playing blackjack for a living, we knew each other from backgammon, and I was a dealer I was dealing blackjack at the Castaways, which was across the street from the Sands. And Kit was...
This was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. And Kit would come in on these junkets to the Sands, and he was a card counter, and he would come see me at the Castaways, and sometimes after work, I would go out and we would go play together. And at the time, I had no bankroll. I was betting nickels. And at the time, we went to Bally's, and they had a 4-deck game. And the game, I don't know if you remember this, Kit, but they had a 4-deck game, and the cut was 1 deck. And they would take the discards out, and they would put it on the top, and then they would break it into two-deck piles. And they would grab 26 cards in each hand and shuffle them and do that 4 times, and that was it.
Oh, they had a very easy shuffle tracking.
Very, very easy to shuffle track. And Kit said to me, hey, if you just count the exact number of cards played and tap my knee every 26 cards, I can keep track of this and track the way they shuffle the cards. And this was my very first introduction to shuffle tracking. And I think this was probably 1979.
It would have been around that time. Yes, I don't remember the exact.
Yeah,
I was playing.
Maybe
I was
80.
playing blackjack for a living from around 1977 to 1984 or so. So it would have been in that era, maybe a year or two later.
Yeah. And, it was shortly thereafter that I, quit my job as a dealer and started playing blackjack full time. And that, that was my introduction to shuffle tracking, which I ended up doing a lot of, during that period after that. So I just want to say I owe you a huge debt of gratitude because it helped launch my career.
You're quite welcome, Munch.
So you were saying you played blackjack from 77 to 84, and how was that? Did you have any bad barrings?
Bad who? Bad bars?
Bad barrings? Backroomings or?
Not really. I mean, I only got barred maybe 3 or 4 times, and they were places where I didn't care whether they barred me or not. I never had any problems at places where I was getting comped and was betting big.
Yeah. Do you still play at all anymore?
No, I haven't played blackjack meaningfully for, since, for over 30 years. I just have no interest in it.
Yeah, our interests change over the years. So.
Yeah.
Going back 40 years ago,
okay.
I was a backgammon player at the Cavendish in Los Angeles area, and somebody, I think it was Danny Klein, showed me an article that you had written called the Alcatraz coup that he thought I would enjoy. And so I read it, being very careful not to mess up his Bridge World magazine because he was very particular about those things. And Do you remember that? I mean, you've written thousands of articles. Do you remember that one? And if so, can you share part of it with us?
I certainly do. In fact, that was the first article I ever wrote for Bridge World. It was January of 1973, so it would be very easy to remember it. What it was I imagined a situation where my bridge team went to play against a team of prisoners at Alcatraz. Now you have to understand the term Alcatraz coup has to do with a sort of shady type of thing one might do, which isn't exactly illegal by the laws, although you clearly aren't supposed to do it. And what I did was I made up some variations on these themes and put them into an article and wrote that as a bridge match against the prisoners who were against the prisoners, right?
And these prisoners were very devious fellows, which might be a reasonable assumption to make if they were in Alcatraz.
Yeah. So I mean, it was all fiction, obviously, but that's what the article was.
And that was the first time I had heard your name, and I thought that was a pretty cool article. So now, we were talking earlier about your bridge encyclopedia, or your Backgammon Encyclopedia book. Have you written anything recently in bridge?
Actually, I have. In fact, just a couple of months ago, I had published a new book. It's called The Language of Bridge. And it's
what's that about?
It's basically describing what bids really mean if you put them into English. In other words, what your bids are really saying, what you're trying to accomplish, if you put it into English, and rather than just road or just points or anything like that. And that's what the book is about.
Makes sense. Yep.
So it didn't cover when in doubt lead trumps, huh?
No, not exactly.
We're talking to Kit Woolsey about Backgammon and Bridge. We have a few brief commercials. We'll be right back with more questions.
The South Point has more than 10,000 games returning more than 99%. This is more than anyone else has. In December, most things in the casino are half price using points between December 17th to 24th, including rooms, meals, New Year's Eve shows, any show tickets actually, bowling, movies, etc. The points do not have to be earned in December, although they may be if you like. This is the normal December promotion for the South Point, only it's shorter this year because the NFR Rodeo was pushed back a week. There will be free video poker classes on Tuesdays beginning January 9th. The schedule may be found on bobdancer.com. At videopoker.com is the best place to play lots of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month or $79.95 a year, this allows you to get correction on most of the games. The game of the week is split card poker. Split card poker is a 10-coin per line game where periodically on either the deal or the draw, not both, you get a split card. A split card is any one of the 52 cards accompanied with equal probability by a card of the same suit, either one rank above, one rank below, or a duplicate. For example, if the 6 of hearts were the split card, 1/3 of the time you get the 7 of hearts with it, 1/3 time 5 of hearts, and the other third, another 6 of hearts. Currently, there are no commercially available software to analyze this game, so you have to create your own.
All right, so we're talking to Kit Woolsey. Now, is there any, you study bridge, you study backgammon, you used to study blackjack. Is studying any of these games help you in studying the others?
They can. They can. There can be some crossovers. But, each game has its own individualities. And there's certain concepts, as far as risk and reward, which, would apply in any sort of gambling game or any sort of, game like these. Yeah.
Are there any other games that you're into? I know at one time you were into chess, right?
I was into chess when I was quite young, but I pretty much gave it up, very early.
Any other games that you've
I can
caught the bug?
I can play gin rummy adequately, but nowhere near at the top levels. And I can play poker adequately, but again, nowhere near at the top levels. I'm sort of a student of games and gambling. That's what interests me. So it would be hard not to be interested in these games, but bridge and backgammon are the games where I'm really proficient.
And how many backgammon and how many bridge tournaments a year do you think you play?
Bridge tournaments, well, I play 3 nationals a year, the team trials, the international, the world championship if I qualify, or once every 4 years anybody can play. And I play in, maybe half a dozen regional tournaments a year. And backgammon, usually about maybe 4 or 5 tournaments a year. Plus whatever else I play at the local club.
Do you play? Do you go to Monte Carlo?
No, I haven't been to Monte Carlo for quite some time. The last time I was there for the backgammon tournament was 1981.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, I just the combination of long travel, the expense, some other things, it just doesn't really interest me that much.
Yeah.
Now, in some events, go ahead.
I was just going to say, although it would be nice to have that World Championship trophy, to put on your mantle.
Oh, to me, the World Championship is really no different from any other tournament. Just they happen to call that one the World Championship.
Right.
Well, I don't buy that. I don't think winning the World Series is just, it's just a couple baseball games we won. No, I think winning there's certainly prestige involved with it, even if it was harder to do.
There might be prestige, but, as far as personal satisfaction goes, for me at least, it wouldn't be any different from any other tournament. It's competition, might be a little better, might not be might be a little weaker, but it's the same game.
Now, at least some of the time, you compete with your wife as a partner.
In bridge, yes.
In bridge.
Uh-huh.
Some families could handle that, and some couldn't.
That's true. Yes.
Do you find that makes your marriage stronger, or it puts extra stress on it, or it's just neither here nor there? Just something you do together?
Well, we met, through bridge. She was a bridge player, long before I met her. It's something we enjoy doing together. Yeah. It certainly doesn't put any extra stress on it.
Does she help you with your columns or your books, or is she your number one editor or something like that?
No, she's not into that. Yeah, we play as a partnership sometimes, and do well or badly depending on how things are.
So very recently there was a backgammon tournament in the Las Vegas area.
Very recently is an understatement, since I just got back from it today.
Well, that part is true, although this will likely air in 10 days after we tape it. So when we air it, it is very recently. And so was that anything interesting happen at the backgammon tournament that was particularly remarkable?
No, just another backgammon tournament. I like the Las Vegas tournaments. I like to go to Vegas, and It's a good, well-run tournament.
And you cashed, right?
This tournament, I made it to the semifinals of the Open. Yes.
Yeah. And what's your next tournament coming up?
The next backgammon tournament, I think, will be in San Antonio in early February.
Very good. If somebody wished to pick up, they were a backgammon player and wished to do better in tournaments, which of your books would you most recommend that they study?
Backgammon, I would say New Ideas in Backgammon. That and How to Play Tournament Backgammon, which focuses a lot on tournament play, because cube decisions in tournament in matches can be quite different from in money play. Those two would be most valuable.
Is McGrill's book still relevant?
It's the best book ever written.
Really? Wow, still.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, there are flaws in it, and it's, at a beginner's level, and that, you and I wouldn't get much from it other than confirmation of things we've already, worked out and known. But for somebody, for an intelligent person who's getting into the game, it's a must. Yeah, that's where you start.
When I read McGrill back in the 70s, it was, he took a lot more chances. He slotted more, where slotted would mean leave an exposed checker in the hope of covering it next time. He did that a lot more than what I was used to before I read it. After now we have Extreme Gammon and Snowy and the others, are the general principles he used still valid?
Oh, the general principles are certainly valid. Whether they apply to a particular position, whether they're accurate or not, who knows? I mean, there'll certainly be many positions in his book where he was wrong, but that still doesn't change the concept. It just, the priorities of the position happen to be not what he thought they were. But the concepts are correct.
And we didn't know they were wrong until after the bots came out. Is that correct? Were the best players know it was wrong at the time?
Well, some players might have had an idea, but nobody really knew. We were all guessing.
And he was one of the best players at the time, so obviously he thought it was right.
Obviously he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, the bots have demonstrated a lot of the concepts from that area were just plain wrong.
Can you think of an example of a type of play where the expert play today is considerably different than it was 30 years ago?
Yes. Probably the best example would be blitzing and making the ace point. 30 years ago, that was completely frowned on. Making deep points. Even, for example, let's say an opening 6-4, 30 years ago, if you made the 2-point, you'd be laughed at. And now it's basically equal to the other two possible plays.
Yeah, another thing that I've noticed just from playing Extreme Gammon is that back then we put far too much emphasis on keeping the midpoint. And now I just noticed that, plays where I would tend to not want to break the midpoint, it turns out it's usually, these types of positions, it's telling me I should break the midpoint. So
that I didn't feel, at least for myself, I didn't feel any particular difference along those lines.
Yeah. Also, it also seems to me that far more splitting of the back checkers on the opening rolls than what I was doing back then.
Right, that's true. There's greater advantage to splitting and potentially making an advanced anchor or making it more difficult for the opponent to bring his builders down safely. This is, the bots have shown this to be more important, and the bots have shown the race to be more significant than we had previously realized. Because if you fall behind the race, you have to hit something to get it back, and you might not. And players in the 70s sort of overvalued their ability or the chances of being able to hit the shot when they need it.
Right.
The difference I noticed in that area, where assuming your two backmen started on the 24 point, to split to the 23 point, one of the checkers was done relatively frequently, but to split to the 22 point was almost never done because double fives can wipe you out. And yet it seems like it's now done a lot more than it used to be done.
Oh, it's now just another split. You just don't worry about that 1 in 36 time opponent's going to roll double fives. There are 35 other numbers he might roll.
Right. Yeah.
There's a risk, but there's a risk in anything you do. If you stay back on the 24 point, you could just get stuck there.
Yep.
It's all risk and reward. Everything, and any kind of gaming. That's what it's all about.
The best backgammon and bridge players, to me, always appeared to be like genius IQ people. It took that kind of intelligence to play those games at the highest level. Would you concur with that, or is that just a misconception on my part?
I would say that the best gamers of any game, not just bridge and backgammon, are probably going to, on balance, be more intelligent. But as far as genius IQ goes, I don't have I don't know what a genius IQ is, but I've seen plenty of very intelligent people who aren't particularly good backgammon or bridge players, even though they play. So I would not, while of course there's a correlation in intelligence, I wouldn't say it's a mandatory thing or a necessary thing. No.
Very good. Kit Woolsey, we wish to thank you for taking time to visit with our guest today. We wish you success in your new backgammon book and your new bridge book. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody.
Okay.
Good day.